Hey guys, Richard from The Plain Bagel here. I wanted to make a follow-up to my April Fool's video titled Revealing My Investment Portfolio, wherein I kind of trolled my audience and didn't actually reveal anything. Aside from an ad for my Bagel Buddies Billions Buyers program, which make sure to sign up in the link down below. It's only $3,000. But I wanted to address, aside from just trolling everyone and clickbaiting you, I wanted to address why I've never revealed my personal investments or my portfolio. And this is obviously something that's pretty popular to do in the investment YouTube space. There are some YouTubers who focus on investment picks and things like that. Financial education is one of the bigger ones that comes to mind. And on the personal finance, just finance channels in general, it's something that, Graham Stephan has revealed his trades of certain positions. And Meet Kevin is a big YouTuber who has, revealed his entire investment portfolio. Now, unlike Graham Stephan or Meet Kevin, I myself am not a multimillionaire. I know. Okay, well, be nice, come on. But I do have my Chartered Financial Analyst designation. I do work as an investment analyst for a wealth manager. So, that is something I do as a job. I work as someone who researches stocks, makes recommendations, and those recommendations are used by our clients. So I have gotten a lot of comments over the years of people saying, hey, Richard, show us the goods. To which I've always responded, no. I really do try to avoid talking about specific positions. And the few times that I have talked about companies or investments, it's been a focus on kind of the hyped up positions, and it really hasn't been a recommendation one way or the other. I mean that when I say it. It has always just been to highlight the risks that I think people have kind of overlooked when, you have such a hyped position. So I figured you guys were owed an explanation as to why I don't share my personal positions or my recommendations, because I do have that secret sauce. I do make wealth beyond my wildest dreams. And the fact of the matter is the world just can't afford to have that many billionaires. So, sorry. But in all honesty, outside of the fact that, it would be kind of a compliance nightmare to try and work my current position and, share the holdings of my personal account, even though I could technically do it with the right disclosures and stuff, there are personal opinions I have about doing so. And obviously a lot of YouTubers do this. So, none of this is to criticize individuals. These are just my opinions about the practice. First and foremost is the fact that, quite frankly, a lot of the ideas I hold aren't my own. That's just a matter of fact. I work in my capacity as an investment analyst in a team of portfolio managers. And there are ideas that I've collaborated with others on that I've taken the ideas of my coworkers, because quite frankly, they have more experience and in some cases more education than myself. So while a lot of people share their own research as stuff they've done themselves, quite frankly, I just, while I do my own recommendations and stuff that's more self-guided, because I do reach out for feedback and things like that, I just don't think it's fair to share it as my own ideas. I've never presented myself as a boy genius. That's not the case. A lot of the time I've worked with others on creating these recommendations. The second reason is more of a selfish reason, and that's that I truly believe that posting ideas and stock positions online can influence your own investment process in a negative way. What I mean by that is when you post an idea, like let's say I make a recommendation for a given stock, you're sort of marrying that idea. You're making a public stance about a given position. And that makes it very hard to pivot in the future if something around your thesis changes. Think of like ARC Research or all these YouTube channels that are focused entirely on Tesla. Hopefully Tesla does well, but if something changed with Tesla, think about how difficult it would be for those channels and that, investment fund to pivot, to change their mind. How bad of a reputation hit that would be to those companies, to those YouTubers. So I just don't want to put myself in a position where I'm entrenched in a position and I feel like I have to stick with something. All that, and quite frankly, I just don't want to deal with, 13-year-olds online shitposting about my personal portfolio. It would distract me from my work, and I just want to focus. I want to keep the two separate so that, at work, I can, in a very objective, kind of no influence environment, research positions, and on YouTube, I can talk about investments without letting that influence the former. And sort of related to that, my third point is I don't think people should really be getting their stock ideas from YouTube. I know, surprise, right? Don't get me wrong, I love the YouTube platform, and it's not to say people can't talk about stocks on YouTube. But the fact of the matter is that YouTube is first and foremost an entertainment platform. And the videos that do well on YouTube are not the ones that are, in-depth research, that boring fine print that needs to be discussed when it comes to stock investments. It's the, easy to watch, light on detail stuff that is well marketed. Think about the types of videos you see in your recommended feed about given stocks or whatever. It's never something like analyst provides deep dive into given company and provides their balanced opinion. It's always like, Tesla to 3,000, market's going to crash. It's also a lot of stuff that focuses on short-term news. Stuff that by its very nature is not good for the average investor to focus on. So because of that conflict of interest, to kind of focus on, those buzzword positions and short-term news, I just don't think YouTube's that appropriate for getting stock positions. So I don't really want to contribute to that. I don't want to be motivated to focus on those types of positions. In many ways, I would see it as like trying to get medical advice from infomercials or commercials versus a medical journal. Obviously the infomercials and commercials will be a lot easier to watch and consume. And it's not to say they're inaccurate. You might find the medicine you want. It's just to say that obviously the better route would be to read through the fine print of the medical journal to understand your options and to, make your selection that way. And the fourth and final reason, which I think is the most important, is that I don't want to provide stock recommendations and take on that kind of responsibility of advising people without knowing them, without knowing their situation, because in many cases, a given stock might not be appropriate for all types of investors. People like to view stocks as being binary. They're either a good idea, in which case everyone should own it, or they're a bad idea, in which case, people should avoid it like the plague. But that's really not the case. It's more complicated than that, because we don't know what a stock will do in the future. Sure, you can assess historically what a stock has done, but that in no way determines whether in the future it's a good or a bad idea. A much more appropriate way to look at it is through probabilities, right? The probability of something doing well versus doing poorly. And it does kind of, explain why some investments are appropriate for some people and some are not. To sort of illustrate this, imagine you had a stock that had a 50% chance of doubling in value, or just over doubling in value, we'll say, and a 50% chance of losing everything. Obviously there's a positive expected return here. So, the rational investor should take this investment, this bet. But quite frankly, a lot of people can't afford to lose 100% on the money they put into an investment. So when someone like Meet Kevin, someone who's a millionaire from a real estate portfolio, shares their investment portfolio, that in no way means it's appropriate for everyone. And I'm not saying that, Meet Kevin is saying that it's appropriate for everyone, that these are all bets. I'm not sure what his disclosures are, but I'm sure he would agree that, this is not something that's appropriate for everyone. This isn't a hit piece on Meet Kevin or me going after these big YouTubers. It's just to say that obviously their personal situation affords them to take on these riskier bets that other people can't afford. Even my own situation, I have a job where I make most of my money from my position as an investment analyst. I make a decent amount from YouTube. And that's something that inherently makes my situation very different from most people. So, even if I were to share my own personal investments, it might be closer to what the average person can afford to take on, but in no way is appropriate for everyone. Again, I always like to bring up the medical example, but I think it's a good, parallel where, it's the same reason you don't see doctors online giving diagnoses. Diagnoses? Sounds right. It's why you don't see doctors giving a diagnosis online to a vast audience. It's because they don't know your situation. And I know some people don't think that's how finance works, but it really is. It's such a big deal when it comes to how well you're going to do regarding investments. And I know that there are people out there who think, Richard, we're grown-ups. We can decide for ourselves whether something's a good idea or not. Sure, there are many people like that. Some people aren't. And I'm well aware that with over 300,000 subscribers, I have a lot of influence over people. And really, I would believe that most people aren't in a position where they should even be focusing on stock picks. I know a lot of people, when they get into investing, they start off by watching YouTube videos about top picks and things like that. But in many ways, that's putting the cart before the horse. Before you start picking your own stocks as an investment plan, sure, people have their fun money accounts that they play with, but if you're dealing with stuff in terms of an investment for the long term, for your retirement or whatever, before you get into stock picks, it's so much more important to be educated, to focus on your budgeting, your financial situation, to learn the psychological impacts and be psychologically prepared for the ups and downs of the market. So really, as a channel that I want to be kind of beginner accessible, I don't want to promote the idea that beginners should be focusing on stock picks, because I don't believe that. I don't believe that's the case. So those are my thoughts on the space. Just give me a moment. I'll hop off my high horse for a second. It might all sound like an excuse, and that's a fair assessment. Like I get why people might just say, oh, like you're just pretending that you have this portfolio of perfect positions that you're keeping from us. That's not the case. It's just an area that I quite frankly never set the channel out to address. But I do want to highlight that I'm not totally against people or YouTubers sharing their investment portfolio. Even beginners who, might not have that experience, sharing their research online. I personally don't want to share my investment portfolio. That's my opinion, my viewpoint. People can share their own stuff, but I do think that in the YouTube space, I'd like to see people qualifying their picks more. Highlighting that, investments aren't guaranteed, and not just having that disclosure at the bottom of their YouTube channel, but discussing the risks around what they pick. Avoiding overconfidence and, those convictions of, yes, this position is going to do well, you should have it in your own portfolio. I think it really does a disservice not only to the viewers, but to the whole investment industry. The truth is that myself included, and finance YouTubers, we have a lot of influence. And, with great power comes great responsibility. These are people's livelihood that we're dealing with. And unless you're going to take on that liability, that responsibility for what you share online, if you're not going to, disclose, give all the caveats of information, I think it's best served to just avoid the area. It's not to gatekeep. It's not to say people can't invest themselves in stock pick and research themselves, but just qualify. We don't want people out there, selling things as sure bets, especially when you have conflicts of interest and things like that. Just, disclose, qualify, all that good stuff. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're one of these YouTubers who shares their investment picks online, just know, I'm coming for you. The Bagel Boy's out there. He's gonna take you down. I'm joking. I in no way want this to be taken as criticism of, especially the YouTubers I mentioned and things like that. That's not the intent here. I'm just trying to have a conversation about something that I think needs to be sort of addressed. And in fact, if one of these YouTubers has thoughts on it, I'd love to hear from you. I'm not saying I have the right opinion on this. This is just that, an opinion on the space. And I look forward to hearing feedback. So thank you for joining me today. And as always, be safe out there.